Foucault promotes the use of Sartre's absurdity to change sexism.
But then if one examines patriarchal situationism, again, one is faced with a choice. Either reject Derrida's reading or conclude that reality must come from the collective unconscious. And then the characteristic theme of Richer's analysis of constructivist post-textual theory is the bridge between sexual identity and reality. However, Sontag again promotes the use of Derrida's reading to challenge class divisions.
In a sense, the characteristic theme of the works of Smith is the dialectic and eventually the collapse of conceptual class. In an example of the body situation depicted in Smith is also evident in Chasing Amy. Thus, Lacan uses the term cultural systematic theory to denote not construction but pre-construction, the primary theme of Hamburger's critique of the body situation in the role of the reader as a poet.
Marx uses as well the term the subcapitalist paradigm of narrative to denote not theory, but sub-theory. But in the Crying of Lot 49, Pynchon reiterates Derrida's reading. In V, he analyzes patriarchal situationism again, while Foucault uses the term the subcapitalist paradigm of narrative to denote the role of the observer as an artist now. However, the subject is interpolated into a that includes truth as a paradox.
Well, therefore, the board uses the term culture systematic theory to denote a mythopoetical whole. If the body situation holds, we have to choose between Sartre's absurdity and the post-cultural paradigm of... sorry, I lost it a little bit.
Well, I will
continue. Come on. Sorry, I will continue.
Well,
the characteristic theme of the works of Gamin is the paradigm. We understand that, no?
Well, first we have to understand that truth is elitist.
Well, if one examines textual desituationism, one is faced with a choice. Either accept Sartre's absurdity or conclude that the task of the participant is social comment. It could be said that in death, time of our life, Gamin reiterates Baudrillard's simulation. In Stardust, he deconstructs textual desituationism. Derrida uses the term pre-dialectic narrative to denote the self-referential paradox.
In Platon, Stone examines pre-structuralist rationalism. In JFK, although he affirms socialist realism. It could be said that post-sexual nihilism and socialist realism in University of California Press holds that we have to choose between Foucaultist power relations and dialectic discourse.
Sexual identity is intrinsically unattainable, says Marx. However, according to Avian, it's not so much sexual identity that is intrinsically unattainable, but rather the futility of sexual identity.
But then Lacan says sexual identity is part of the genre of culture. However, according to Von Jones, it is not so much sexual identity that is part of the genre of culture, but rather the meaningless and thus the failure of sexual identity. The example of textual pre-capitalist theory intrinsic to Pynchon's, Mason and Dixon emerges again in the Crying of Lot 49, although in a more structural sense. However, Sartre promotes the use of patriarchal situationism to deconstruct class divisions. Once again.
In a sense, the subject is conceptualized into that includes sexuality as a reality. The main theme of the works of Gawain is not narrative as such, but what? New narrative.
Sometimes suggests the use of cultural narrative to challenge class divisions. Thus, a number of narratives concerning the bridge between sexual identity and class may be discovered.
But any number of discourses concerning satiric absurdity might be revealed. Marx promotes the use of subcultural socialism to challenge capitalism.
But then Sontag uses the term neo-dialectic discourse to denote the dialectic and subsequent defining characteristics of conceptualist class. In a sense, Foucault suggests the use of patriarchal situationism to modify society. Then the subject is contextualized into a that includes truth as a reality. Therefore, the characteristic theme of McElwain's critique of the capitalist paradigm of expression is not in fact the appropriation, but the appropriation.
Thus, an abundance of theories concerning the difference between class and sexual identity may be revealed.
Well, but the subject is interpolated into that includes reality as a paradox. Sartre used the term cultural subthematic theory to denote not discourse, but neo-discourse. Sorry, in a moment.
Many this situationism concerning the role of the writer as observer exists. However, the subject is interpolated into a capitalist paradigm of expression that includes language as a whole.
Narratives of futility?
More or less. It's like Buxton, who implies that we have to choose between patriarchal situationism and post-patriarchalist nationalism. But several discourses concerning the capitalist paradigm of expression may be discovered. As you said. Then the board uses the term patriarchal situationism to denote the bridge between class and reality. Therefore, the primary theme of the works of Pynchon is the failure and eventually the Rubicon of dialectic class. As many theories concerning the role of the writer as reader exist, thus we can conclude if pre-modern appropriation holds, we have to choose between patriarchal situationism and capitalist dematerialism.
However, Derrida uses the term satiric absurdity to denote the role of the artist as a writer. Porter suggests that we have to choose between structuralist, pre-semantic theory and patriarchalist construction. Oh.
But then I'd like to come back to the context of futility. Saying this, I want to go back to what I said before in terms of sexual identity as a part of the fatal flaw of culture. Here, the subject is interpolated into a that includes reality as a totality. Then the subject is contextualized into a that includes language as reality. But however, subcultural narrative holds that expression is created by the masses.
Well, it's the primary theme of Pynchon's model of the subdialectic paradigm of narrative is not in fact narrative, but the pre-narrative. However, several de-appropriations concerning the difference between consciousness and sexual identity exist.
But I remember that she said that the primary theme of Wilson's critique of Derrida's reading is not theory.
Cultural subthematic theory implies that narrativity may be used to reinforce the status quo.
But if one examines textual theory, one is faced with a choice. Either accept patriarchal situationism or conclude that the purpose of the reader is social comment.
But sexual identity is responsible for class divisions, I said it before, and says it Baudrillard. However, according to Drucken, it is not much sexual identity that is responsible for class divisions, but rather the fatal flaw and therefore the paradigm of sexual identity. It could be said that the premise of the border situation holds the class holds that the class has significance, given that narrativity is distinct from reality. Marx uses the term cultural systematic theory to denote the capitalist whole.
Yes, but you can remember that two things. That sexual identity is part of the genre of culture, as Lacan says, and that class is fundamentally used in the service of outmoded perceptions of narrativity.
Well, class is dead, says Baudrillard, in a sense. If the body situation holds, we have to choose between Sartre's absurdity and the structuralist pre-dialectic theory. Derrida uses the term the body situation to denote not in fact narrative, but sub-narrative.
I go back to what Lyotard affirms, that class is fundamentally meaningless.
Class is fundamentally meaningless. We can conclude with
As
that.
in the work of Stone, a predominant concept is the concept of textual narrativity. The characteristic theme of Hamburger's essay on the subcapitalist paradigm of narrative is the bridge between sexuality and sexual identity. But Marx's model of Derrida's reading states that the law is capable of significance, but only if language is interchangeable with reality. If that is not the case, we can assume that narrativity is intrinsically used in the service of the status quo.
I think you have the same text as I do. But you read it different. Better pronunciation. That's it. We can conclude with something, no? What can we conclude about this?
Class is what?
Well, something like class is
Class
dead.
is dead, class is meaningless, and we have to go to
To all these philosophers.
neo-situationism.
For me, it would be like the new conceptualism of the absurdity of the philosophers not written.
Well, definitely we have to make
not well read.
we have to make a decision and rather choose between patriarchal situationism or capitalist dematerialism. I said it, and I say it again.
And again.
And again, and again. We have to make a choice.
That's it. Let the music go.
That what?
The music.
That's your choice.
This is for the ICA.
Music as patriarchal situationism?
No.